Hey guys, welcome back. And today we are going to be looking at my top 15 tight ends in the 2025 NFL Draft. This is a really good tight end class. Obviously, last year there were quite a few tight ends that went a bit higher than expected, but outside of Bowers, it was kind of looked at as a weaker class. This year, I don't really think that's the case. I think there's a lot of depth. There's a lot of players down the board that I think are going to be immediate impact players at the NFL level. Now, before we get into it, a couple of things I want to say. First off, be sure to use my code JWAC, sign up for Underdog Fantasy to get double your initial deposit. On top of that, be sure to check out my Patreon. I'll have that linked down below. There, you guys can get exclusive access to my draft guide, scouting reports, valuations, power rankings, prospect interviews, and much, much more. And lastly, I do want to give a couple shout outs to a couple of honorable mentions that just missed the cut. RJ Maryland from SMU is a guy that I've seen pretty high on some of these lists. I just couldn't get there. I've got him at number 16. And then the other guy, Justin Joly from NC State, transferring from UConn, really athletic, really good receiving threat, but was pretty limited as a blocker, felt undersized, and he didn't end up making the cut. He's at 17. There are some guys down the board, though, that I do think are going to shoot up. I think we could see Jolie shoot up going to NC State. I think there's some guys even further down the board that if you guys check out the Patreon, you can see my full rankings. But those are a couple guys I wanted to give a quick shout out to. But let's go ahead and get into it, starting off with the number 15 spot. Now I have Oronde Gadsden as a wide receiver. So he will not be with the tight ends. If he was, he'd probably crack the top 10. But we're starting off at number 15. That's going to be Bryson Nesbitt out of North Carolina. I like this guy as an athlete. He's very versatile. He played in line, but he took a lot of his snaps primarily in the slot, which I think that's where he could play a majority at the NFL level. I could see him being a really nice big slot. He's got incredible burst and athleticism. He broke out of his route super quickly. He had stop and go on a dime ability. There was one route he had in the game against Minnesota where he stopped and the defender bit and then he was gone. He's got a lot of upside as an athlete. He's got really strong hands. He's a good receiver, knows how to create separation. But that's really where the positives finish. I think he's undersized for the position in terms of his weight. He's got pretty poor play strength, and it really showed up as a blocker where I'm not going to sugarcoat things. He was horrible as a blocker, was pushed around way too easily, was manhandled. He's got to add on some weight if he's going to be a tight end, which is why I think he might be a big slot at the NFL level. He's got some really nice route running abilities, though, and the ability to make plays happen. He's elusive. So I think that alone puts him into the top 15. And the reason I kind of gave him the edge over a guy like Justin Joly with a similar skill set, I like his catch radius quite a bit, and he's coming from a higher level of competition, which does play a factor into some of these rankings. At number 14, we've got Cole Rusk. Now, this is a guy I'm willing to bet not a lot of people have watched very much film on Cole Rusk, but he is a transfer to Illinois coming from Murray State, the college where John Morant went. Very small school, but was pretty impressed with what I saw from him. I thought he had really solid size and athleticism. He moved pretty well. He ran sharp and quick routes, broke out of his routes really quickly, made himself available for the quarterback. On top of that, I thought he had really reliable hands. I think he had one drop in 2023. He's a good mover, had some yard after catch upside as well. Again, not the greatest blocker. I think he's a better blocker than Nesbitt was, which gives him the edge a little bit over him. Play strength was lacking. He did get pushed around a little bit more than is ideal. Looked a little bit out of control. As a receiver, I think he's really good. As a blocker, I think he's average. I don't really think he brings too much to the table. He plays a little bit out of control at times. I think he needs to add on some weight. But if he can do that, I could see Cole Rusk being a solid sleeper and a guy that could crack the top 10 by draft time, because Illinois, we saw it last year with Tip Raymond. They know how to get their tight ends involved. They like to use their tight ends more as blockers, so it might be a really good opportunity to get to see him in that role. And I really liked what I saw from him at Murray State, so I got him at number 14. At number 13, we've got Amari Niblack out of Texas, transferring from Alabama. There's a lot of transfers on this list. incredible athlete. I think he might be one of the best athletes, if not the best athlete in the entire draft class. He's very fast. He moves incredibly well. He's basically a Jatavian Sanders. If he was recreated in a lab, that would be Amari Niblack. He lined up everywhere. He lined up in line. He lined up outside in the slot. He's got the speed, the athleticism, the route running that you'll really like to see from the tight end position. And he hit hard as a blocker. Now, as an inline blocker, didn't really show much, but as a blocker in space, this guy laid some powerful hits that I was really impressed by. He's a smaller tight end. He had some weird balance issues where he just fall on the field. He'd get his hands up to block, lean forward, end up on the ground. It was actually pretty funny to watch. Lack of production as well. Alabama just didn't give him a lot of reps. It's probably why he transferred. He's going to a Texas team that I think we saw last year. There's a team that runs a lot of motion, which I think he would do really well in. They can get him the ball in space, and he's got the athleticism to make it happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the top 10 come draft time because his athleticism, his hands, and his speed are very impressive. I got him at number 13 as of now just because of the lack of production, and I still have some questions about some of his blocking. At number 12, we've got Jalen Conyers from Texas Tech, a guy that a lot of people really like. I think he's going to probably be a Senior Bowl player. Transferring from Arizona State to Texas Tech, really, really good size. He's got a bulkier frame for the tight end position, which is really good. And I think it hurts him a little bit because he's not very fast. He has some interesting, I think he had some nice, quickness and a little bit of burst off the line. But where he was really used, get him the ball in motion, get him the ball on screens, and let him go to work because he's got incredible yard after catch upside. He's very hard to tackle. He's got an incredible contact balance. He's got very reliable hands. He just didn't drop many passes last year. Obviously, we talked about it. The speed is a concern, and it's why he's not in the top 10 because he can't win downfield. If he gets matched up with a linebacker corner, he doesn't have the speed, doesn't have the separation to really make plays happen after that, which is why I think he's a very specific role type of player. And he's got an up and down as a blocker. I think he has some moments. He has some other concerns from time to time, but overall, I think Conyers is a good player. Just want to see a little bit more. He's a little bit of an older prospect as well. I've got him at number 12. At number 11, we've got Mason Taylor out of LSU. I like Taylor. Just didn't feel like they used him as much as I think they could have at LSU. He showed some really interesting upside. I thought he was a better route runner than we gave him credit for. He had some really nice quick outs that he would get open on. Jaden Daniels just wouldn't hit him there. He's got the size. I think he's got speed, which I feel like that comes with the territory for LSU players. But he has speed to win down the field. He was beating linebackers one-on-one. He's got strong hands. He's a good receiver. I think he's a little bit slow on his feet. He's not super quick. Doesn't have an elite burst off the line of scrimmage. He's not a super physical player either when matched up against more physical corners, when matched up against physical blockers. He was just manhandled. He was pushed around too easily. I think he needs to improve on his level of physicality. And I think he had a lot of inconsistencies as a blocker, took bad angles, had some up and down technique. But what he offers as a receiver, I really like. I like his athleticism. And I think he's got some upside as a blocker. Very interested to see what he does this year at LSU with Garrett Nussmeier and not a as loaded group of weapons as we have seen in years past. I think Taylor's going to be a fun player. I've got him at number 11. At number 10, we've got Luke Lachey out of Iowa. Now, I don't know what happened to the other side of his arm, so just going to get that out of the way. He's got a really large catch radius. I think with Lachey, I was never the highest on him. Even last year, people were like, oh, he's the clear tight end 2 or 3 right behind Jatavian Sanders and Brock Bowers. I was like, I don't think so. I just didn't see it with him because what he does well, I feel like it's all in the receiving game. He's got a large catch radius. I believe he's 6'6". He's dynamic in space. He's got speed. He's got elusiveness to make plays happen. He was by far the best receiving tight end on Iowa last year. He's a good athlete. He ran good routes. There's a lot to like there, but he's coming off an injury where he missed most of the season last year. His play strength was not good. I think he was pushed around way too easily. He was very limited as a blocker. They produce good tight ends. He's probably more on that Noah Fant level of Iowa tight ends. Granted, he was a first-round pick. I don't think he's the level of receiver there, but Fant wasn't as elite of a blocker, was more of a receiver. That's what I see with Lachey. I give him a little bit of a benefit of the doubt because of he did produce at Iowa, was very good in space, and I think he's got upside. I love his size as well, and he's coming from Iowa, which is tight end university. I've got him at number 10. I think he could go up. He could go down depending on how the year goes, but he is at number 10. At number 9, we've got Jack Velling, a transfer from Oregon State to Michigan State following head coach Jonathan Smith. Man, was really impressed with what Velling showed. Really good athlete. I thought he thrived as a puller in the run game. He definitely did a good job as a blocker in that department. He's a good athlete, moves well, was really good in motion, has strong hands, showed some yard after catch upside. He's a good pass blocker. I thought he had good base as a pass blocker, showed some nice hands. Really liked what we saw from him there. As a run blocker, I had a little bit more concerns from him because he had the tendency to just disengage too early with his blocks, which I really didn't like to see. I also felt like even though he's got good athleticism, he wasn't really a great route runner, didn't really separate down the field the way you would like to see, which was a bit interesting because the tools are there. He just could not create separation and get open consistently. He had some moments, but it's inconsistent. That's really what's pushing him down on this list. I like what we saw from him, and I'm very curious what he's going to look like in this Michigan State offense, but I got him at number 9. At number 8, we've got Oscar Delp out of Georgia. And Delp is a really interesting player. Balance in the run game is my only concern with him as a blocker because he's a fantastic blocker. They played him a lot in line, and he did a really nice job of holding defenders back, having a strong base, and winning the rep. I thought that was really impressive from him. I thought he had good size. He's a really good athlete, too. He was great in motion. They like to get him the ball in space, very similar to how they used Brock Bowers. But that's kind of my concern with him. They didn't do that. He was really on the field for blocking downs. They didn't like to use him as a receiver, which the tools are all there. He's got hands. He's got the athleticism. He was very limited as a receiver. And then we'll get into another Georgia tight end who they brought in through the portal. He's never been the number 1 tight end on the roster. So that concerns me a little bit. It's kind of like the Darnell Washington sort of deal a couple years ago where he's the number 2 tight end. Now he's a very good number 2 tight end. Great blocker. He can offer versatility athletically, but there are some concerns with the reps that he has gotten and then some run game concerns. So I've got him at number 8. I think he's a good player. I love what I see. I just want to see a little bit more from him in 2024. At number 7, we've got Tyler Warren out of Penn State. Another guy who's a bit of an older tight end prospect that was not used much as a receiver and has really never been the number 1 tight end on the roster. But the reason I give him the edge over Oscar Delp, this guy is a nasty blocker, especially as a pass blocker. I thought he did a very incredible job. He is a very physical blocker, plays with a level of nasty to him that you love to see. He's also a very physical player. He likes to win with physicality. He can win those 50-50 balls. He's got strong hands, and I like his frame a little bit more than I like Delp. He's not a very good athlete, though, which I think was really my concern and why he wasn't used as a receiver. If he was a better athlete, there's a chance he could be a top 3 tight end in this class, but was a bit heavy on his feet, didn't run the best routes, wasn't very fast, limited after the catch. He also took some up and down angles as a run blocker, so I'd like to see those areas improve from him, but I like Tyler Warren. I think he's probably going to go in the 3rd, 4th round area, but the upside is there, especially for him as a pass blocker, and if you need a guy to be like a red zone threat, I think Tyler Warren is your guy. At number 6, it is going to be Jake Brenningstool out of Clemson, a guy that a lot of people are really big fans of, myself included. I think he's an incredible athlete with really solid route running abilities. He's got a large catch radius. He's very versatile. They played him in line, but he similar to Bryson Nesbitt, he was better at the slot. That's where he took a lot of his snaps. He's got good speed, good route running, athleticism, all that. Again, probably a big slot at the NFL level if I had to guess. I think he's a better blocker than Nesbitt was, but he's still not an awesome blocker. I think the usage rate has been pretty high. He's done a good job, been very consistent. He had some issues in terms of play strength, holding defenders back. And I think that's going to have to improve in 2024 if he wants to be a high draft pick. I like what he shows as a receiver, as an athlete. Need to see a little bit more as a blocker. That's why he's at number 6. At number 5, we've got Benjamin Jurasik, the other Georgia tight end, who I think is a little bit better than Oscar Delp, particularly as a receiver. He didn't separate very well, but when he did get the ball, he had yard after catch upside. He has speed. He has quickness to run good routes. He's got athleticism. Like, there's a lot to really like. Strong hands, quickness, speed, athleticism, and he's a good blocker. I don't think he's a great blocker, but he definitely showed upside in the blocking department. He's coming off a shoulder injury. He missed quite a bit of time for Stanford in 2023. He wasn't a great separator, as we talked about. And I'd like to see him add on a little bit more weight for the position. Looks a little bit slim. I believe he's at around 237. Don't quote me on that, but he's pretty slim for the position. I'd like to see him add on weight, but it's going to be really fun to see how Kirby Smart gets him the ball. Wouldn't be shocked at all if he's the second tight end off the board in the draft if he has a big year. They're going to use him a lot how they used Brock Bowers last year, in motion, get him the ball in space, let him make plays happen. I think Jurasik can make it happen. I've got him at number 5. At number 4, we've got Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame. Now, he's coming off an ACL tear. That one was a bit of a scary one for me and didn't really know too much. And by the looks of it, it's not like a good ACL tear. It's definitely something to monitor going into the year for Notre Dame, but I think he's a reliable receiving threat. Again, quick outs, get him the ball. He can make plays happen. He's got strong hands. He's a pretty good route runner. And he shows blocking upside, particularly as a pass blocker, which you love to see. Had a strong base. Really impressed with his anchor as a pass blocker as well. Just didn't allow plays, which was really impressive. He's not super athletic as it is, and now you're coming off an ACL tear. How does that affect your athleticism? He's a less athletic Michael Mayer, as my friend the mock draft guy would say. He's got ups and downs as a run blocker, took bad angles, just inconsistencies in those areas. When he's on the field, he's one of the better tight ends in this draft class, but we gotta monitor the injury, and we'd like to see his athleticism improve a little bit more as well. So I've got him at number 4. At number 3 might be my favorite tight end in this entire draft class. I absolutely love this guy, and that is going to be Harold Fannin Jr. out of Bowling Green. I don't think we've ever talked about a Bowling Green guy on this channel. Carl Brooks a couple years ago, but that was before we really started doing what we're doing now here. Harold Fannin is awesome. One of my favorite tight ends I think I've ever watched in my few years of doing this. Incredibly elusive athlete. He moves like an NFL player already. Yard after catch potential is there from him. He's got very good hands, 0 drops last season in 2023. It's not like he was just given short plays. Like, he was winning down the field. He made a really nice catch. I believe it was against Western Michigan. Really nice one-handed touchdown grab that I watched. He can line up in the box, or line up in line, I should say, line up in the slot. Like, he's got all the alignment versatility in the world. And what's really interesting, though, is as elusive as he is as an athlete, the long speed picks up from him. It's really the short to intermediate speed where you're like, okay, this is a little weird. He's not very quick and does not have great burst off the line of scrimmage. This long speed is good, but nothing crazy. I'd like to see him add on a little bit more weight. I believe he's around 230, and he's an average blocker. He's not a bad blocker. He's not a great one either. I've got him at number 3. I think he's going to have an awesome year for Bowling Green. A guy that both me and the mock draft guy absolutely love at the tight end position. I think he's going to be an awesome player. I would take him in day 2 next year without question. At number 2, it is going to be Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon. This was a pleasant surprise. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about Ferguson. Really liked what I saw from him. He hits as a blocker with a ton of power. He's got a strong base and anchor and makes sure the defenders are feeling it next week. He's a good, sharp route runner who's got size and versatility as well, which you love to see. Definitely has strong hands, was used very well. Yeah, he does a little bit of everything at the tight end position. I think he's a really good athlete, but wasn't the most electric after the catch for whatever reason. He's got the athleticism to do it. He just never really made plays happen after the catch. And I think he disengaged too early as a blocker at times, putting the running back and quarterback in danger. He's still a really, really good player. I think he's going to be a second-round pick next year because all the tools that you look for in an NFL tight end are there with Terrence Ferguson, and I'm a big fan. But my number one tight end should come as no surprise if you watch college football. That's going to be Colston Loveland. The guy's an elite athlete, the best route runner in the entire draft class, stop-and-go ability. They used him on, there was one play, I want to say it was against Rutgers, where they used him as a disguise blocker. He leaked out, and then he was wide open, kind of like on a wheel route. Really impressive stuff. He's got great speed, great quickness, great route runner. He's got blocking upside. He's got the length to hold defenders back. I think he took some bad angles at times as a run blocker, but overall, I thought his blocking was well above average. He had 5 drops in 2023, which is really my only concern with him. He's not a Brock Bowers level tight end prospect, but he's very close. The athleticism, the receiving, the route running, everything is all there from him. And I've got him as the number 1 tight end. And I think he is a top 20 pick in next year's draft. That's going to do it. Let me know which tight ends you guys think are at the top of the board. Leave a like, subscribe if you are new. Stay tuned. I've got one of my biggest videos ever coming very soon. I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.